But I have a story about a man who is not competent at his job.
Is it you?
It is not me. I am semi-competent.
And
If you say so.
semi-fertile.
Yeah, and semi-hard all the time. But
Half job?
Oh. Sounds
There-
about right.
yeah, so this man is a pretty new EMT working at my job now, right? He got hired relatively soon. He worked at another place beforehand, though, so he should have a little experience. Seems like he doesn't. Do you guys all know what a cardiac arrest is?
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
It's when someone's heart can no longer pump. The heart stops pumping blood. Sometimes it's just like shivering, or sometimes it's completely stopped. It's just the heart is no longer working.
It's like, nah, fuck this.
Yeah,
I'm out.
like there is no pulse or anything. Like it is not working at all. So
Yeah.
we call that a code. Like, oh, this person just coded. That means they just went into cardiac arrest. So I was sitting down at the table with this guy, right? And out of nowhere, he just says to me, well, first of all, there's 2 levels of ambulance crew that we that are on the job there. There's EMT basics, which is what I am, which can do basic life support stuff, and then there's paramedics, which can do advanced life support stuff. He said to me, "Man, a basic can't even work a code here." And I went, "What do you mean? What do you mean a basic can't? Because all you need to do to work a code is CPR, right? Like that's the bare minimum you need to work a code is your hands. That is what you need." And but I'm like, you know, as long as you have your hands and an AED, you can work a code just fine, right? And he's like, "I forgot we had an AED." I went, "Really?" An AED is what the pads you put on someone
Yeah.
when when they go into cardiac arrest to try to shock their heart back into rhythm. He forgot we carried them. Like, it is illegal for you to go out in the ambulance without an AED. You can't do it. And he forgot we carried them. That is one of your basic pieces of equipment. Like that's up there with like blood pressure cuffs and your cot.
This is America.
Like oxygen, your cot, and the AED are your like main things. And he's
he's trying his best, okay? It's not
like,
about
I forgot
his
we
best.
had an AED.
I think he needs to try harder.
Yeah. So so I've yet to go on a call with this guy, right? And I already have a terrible opinion of him. So I start calling him the Pug, right? Because after I work a few calls with him, because all he does is sit there with a dumb, happy look on his face and do nothing the entire time. Every call we've gone on. So, focusing my camera. One day, in particular, I was a lift assist with his crew. So I was a squad driving behind his squad, and I was helping him move the fatty, right? And this wasn't
okay.
yeah, and
a fat customer, or what do you consider someone? A
Patient.
client?
A patient.
a patient, yeah.
So I'm thinking business boy.
Customer.
So we had a bariatric patient, which is the fatties.
Yes. Okay.
And this was a really simple call. This wasn't even an emergency. This was a discharge from a hospital to a nursing home. Okay? So what happened was we helped him lift the patient into the squad, and they started rolling. We got into our squad, and we started following behind them so we could help them at the nursing home. Well, about halfway to the nursing home, I see the Pug start freaking the fuck out in the back of the squad in front of us, right? He's with the patient. He starts freaking out. He grabs the suction, right? Which is just a tube with like a long plastic catheter on it that you use to like suction people's airways and stuff if they're like choking on their own vomit or something. And he takes the suction tubing away from the actual suction itself, and he puts it on the patient's lap, like he's preparing it, but like on the other side of the squad than what the section is. Okay? And I'm looking in the back of the squad, I'm going, what the hell is he doing?
What in coronations?
And then I see him. Do you guys know what a nasal cannula is?
I'm assuming it's the two things that go
Yeah,
up your
it's the
fucking...
two things that go in your nose, wrap around your ears, and it's what gives you oxygen, right? This patient was on one, and he takes them off of the nasal cannula, and he throws it on the ground, and he reaches into the cabinet, he grabs another nasal cannula, he opens it, and puts it on them. And I went, what the hell is he doing?
He needed more oxygen.
So
What in the hell even is that?
So we approach a stoplight, right? And I immediately text the driver because I know he's competent. And I go, what the fuck is the pug doing? And he goes, I don't know. And then we continue driving. So about another minute into the journey, I see the pug stand up again. And he looks at the patient, right? And he's like got a worried expression on his face. And he takes out his trauma shears, which are the scissors we use to cut off people's clothes when they've been in traumas. And he takes those out, and he starts cutting up the blanket under the patient. And I go, what the fuck is he doing? So he gets a big piece of cloth from this sheet under the patient, and he starts dabbing the patient's face with the with the cloth. And I'm just sitting there in like bewildered because, I mean, there's towels in the squad, there's other sheets in the squad. I don't know what he's doing. So we get to the destination, right? The first thing I do is jump out of my squad. I roll up to the back. I walk up to the back, open the back doors, and I go, what the fuck, pug? What were you doing? And he goes, now hear me out.
As every great story starts.
He was like, I thought I heard some gurgling from the patient. And I'm like, well, were they fine? Were they just clearing their throat? What was happening? And he's like, I don't know. And the patient, mind you, is a little lethargic, and they're like those decrepit nursing home people that can barely communicate with you. And I go, okay, then why did you take the suction away from the suction? He's like, I was just preparing it, dude. All right? I've seen some shit, and I wanted to be prepared. I'm like, okay, sure. Why'd you replace the nasal cannula? He's like, the nasal cannula I thought was clogged, so I got another one. I'm like, nasal cannulas don't really get clogged. It has air constantly being pushed through it. Like, nothing gets in there. And I looked at the nasal cannula on the ground. Nothing was in there. I'm like, okay, man. Why the hell were you using trauma shears by a patient's head on a bumpy road? It's like, well, the patient was really sweaty. So I cut up the sheet under him so I'd have something to wipe the sweat off because they really needed it off their face. I'm like, do you think to use those towels over there? Or those sheets over there? Or the blanket on the back of the cot? He's like, I just had to get something really quick, you know? I'm like, okay. I'm going to unload this patient, and I'm going to ignore you the rest of the night. And yeah, the pug has since never impressed me.